Good morning, brother.
Good morning, man. How you doing?
Good. Welcome everybody to another episode of this week's Motivation and Mindset. Well, two brothers, we get together, we talk about just all the different dynamics of merging that business, that personal. I'm Jermaine Morris. I'm a certified coach and consultant. My practice is based off of a DISC assessment. Here with my big brother.
I'm James Morris. I president and CEO of TMC Supply Chain Solutions, TMC Workforce Solutions. We're national staffing and supply chain company. And again, happy to be here talking with my brother.
Man, always a pleasure. Now, normally I know you're coming from Houston, Texas. I know you're on location today.
I am. I had to jump on a plane. I've got a client in Fort Valley, Georgia. So I'm down here about 2 hours south of the ATL. And so we're in Fort Valley. We've got a huge project going on. So I brought my team down, and we're doing some coaching and consulting, and we're doing an upgrade to an existing facility. So it's a lot of fun. It's a great piece that TMC's gotten involved in. So having a busy week. My sleep has been a little bit short, but super productive, and heading back to Houston tomorrow night.
Nice. So I know one of the stuff we like to do when we typically cover subjects is talk about the dynamic between your expertise, which is in business, basically from the ground up. And then I lean more so on interpersonal relationships and dealing with people, and we kind of juxtapose that dynamic, and we talk about different subjects.
Mm-hmm.
And so this week, kind of keep it in that same line for those people who are trying to do that, those people who are trying to balance their personal life, their relationships, their marriage and family, as well as trying to grow their business, excel in their career. So I know for somebody who's excelled professionally as well as raised, house full of kids, I'd like to hear your thoughts and speak into that dynamic of balancing out, that work and that life dynamic.
That's a great question, right? When you talk about work-life balance, I had a buddy, a good friend of mine, Jim Lantis. We were colleagues for many years, and one thing that he used to always tell me is that nobody lays on their deathbed and says, "Man, I wish I'd have spent a little more time at work." I wish I'd have spent a little bit more time in the office, a few more Saturdays, right?
Yeah.
And that's certainly something that I've dealt with. About a year ago, I was doing an on-stage presentation with the Admins Association, Oil and Gas Admins Association. Open forum, they asked me a lot of questions, and I kind of talked about my career. And I spent some time in Europe, as you know, and ran facilities there in Ireland and all over the United States. And they said, well, looking back on your career, if you had it to do again, would you do the same things the same way? And I always hear people say, oh, I wouldn't change a thing. Well, when I look at it, I would absolutely change many things, right?
Okay.
And the one thing I would change the most is I'd have spent a lot more time at home. I'd have spent a lot more time with my kids. I'd have spent a lot more time building relationships with colleagues and relationships with friends and relationship with family. So, you know, it kind of comes back to the first week that you and I started doing this show. And we talked about, begin with the end in mind,
Yeah.
right? When you get into programs, we talk about beginning with the end in mind. And part of that is, how much time you're going to spend at work versus how much time you're going to spend with your family and things like that. So that's kind of my take on it. I could talk about work-life balance because I've been haunted by it or
Okay.
my lack thereof. But this is a great topic.
So that's great. So when you think about like, okay, I would have rather stayed at home, even if you knew then what you know now, so the business that you built, the experiences that you had, all that, if you could go back, but you knew that by changing how much time you spend at home, your business may not have been as successful as it's been.
Yeah.
You'd still be make the same decision.
Well, it's interesting. I think there's a little bit of balance. We talk about balance.
Yeah.
I think that I would have scaled back. let me say that. I'm not saying I would not have worked, but the one thing that I noticed is that the extra days, right? There's times when when I was hitting 100%, but I was thriving for 110, right? I was thriving. So I'm not saying I would not have worked the same number of Saturdays, but I certainly wouldn't have worked as many Sundays, if you know what I mean. So, and that's assuming the full work week. I really think, in my mid 50s, as I get closer to, I'm thinking about retirement and wrapping up, and my business is really changing as I change. I do think that I could have achieved certain levels of success even if I had balanced it a little bit better, right? I just think sometimes I was just greedy and I went a little too far. A funny little story with your oldest nephew. He used to complain sometimes about me missing a football practice or missing a AAU tournament or something like that, and I would tell him, I don't have to work like this, but we got to move. You're not gonna be able to go to the school that you go to. You're not gonna be able to be in all these camps, right? You're not gonna be able to go to King's Academy and spend a week with LeBron and D Wade learning how to play basketball. Yeah. So if you want me to go get a job someplace else doing something that doesn't require so much of my time, I can do that. But we're all gonna sacrifice.
Yeah. So when because I know you deal with a lot of people who are starting up companies,
right?
And they're in that hungry phase. Well, they're like, man, I work 7 days a week. I work, 18 hours a day. I'll do whatever it takes to get done. Is that something that you would then propose to them? Like, hey, maybe you might want to slow down and balance? Or is that just something that, I'll let them figure it out at the end? And
yeah. I give different when I'm coaching, especially when coaching my clients, I have different advice for different clients.
Okay.
The advice that I give, the young single college grad, it's much different than the, mid 40s married with 3 kids, client.
Okay.
Right. Those guys are, I'm kind of telling them that, hey, listen, man, I like what you're doing, but don't forget about the family time. Where the young cats, I'm telling them to eat, right? Because they're lions. They should be lions, right? They should be out there hunting and gathering and building the life that they want. So I give different advice to different people, and I want to be honest. I just mentioned I'm in Fort Valley, Georgia. I've been here all week. I'm still grinding. I'm still hungry. And probably the thing that surprises me the most is I felt like by the time I hit my 50s, there'd be some young lion creeping up the hill to knock me off and take my spot. And what I'm also, this new generation, they value balance. Yeah. They value free time. They're not looking for money like I was looking for money. They're looking for vacations. And so it's allowed me to kind of stay at the peak of my game a little bit longer because one of your 3 nephews are not coming to knock me off the hill. They're in Cancun or doing other things. So it's just a different, and that's not to say they're not hungry and have drive, but, I don't find that, and I'm sure every generation says it, yeah. I don't find that this new generation is nearly as aggressive or as hungry as we were.
Okay. So when you have somebody who works for you,
okay,
and they're trying to work their way up the ladder, they're trying to make that progression, but they're struggling with the work-life balance, and so if you got somebody who you've learned to rely on, somebody that does a lot for your company, or somebody that you've just seen like that dynamic, and they come to you saying, okay, I need to start being home more. Is that something that hurts their career? Because I think that's the big thing that some people are like, the first day I say I'm not coming in on Saturday, I know Johnson's going to, and then I'm about to get leapfrogged.
Yeah.
In this pursuit.
That's a great question because I'm the type of leader to where I'm really encouraging them to, hey man, don't miss that basketball practice. Make sure you're at that baseball practice. Go spend time. Make sure you get mama out for her birthday. I'm really big on that. But the reality is, if Johnson is available and he has the time, and he's the guy that I can rely on the most, then he's going to get the opportunities. And with opportunities come bonuses, come raises, come promotions. So I'm not necessarily penalizing someone who's taking time at home, but you don't get the same rewards as a guy that's at the office with me, because I have people that will try to stay there as long as I stay there.
Yeah.
They try to beat me in the morning, and I notice it. And they waiting on me to pack up. And I'm like, why are you still here? Oh, I had a couple little things. And as soon as I hit my light switch, they're right behind me. Yeah. They're showing me, hey, man, I'm here. And I've got employees that get there at the crack of dawn or at the start of shift. And at 5 o'clock, they look like Fred Flintstone on the back of a dinosaur, sliding down the tail with the time clock in his hand, going home. But you get what you put in, right? No deposit, no return. So the guys that are going home, they're steady. I know that everybody's not going to be a me. And it took me some time to learn that. I used to be very critical. You going home already? You only working 50 hours this week? Are you sorry? Right? You only work one job? And I have to, it's just everybody's not built the same. So what I find is I put the right people in the right positions. There's some positions that all I need is 40 hours a week. There's other positions where I'm asking during the interview, do you work overtime? Can you travel? What's your availability? So you got to just, direct it towards the individual. What are they able to do? And you can't just put in the time. You also have to be competent.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's one dynamic I would like to shoot your way too. I know this is not like an interview format today, but I think you've been in your business for so many years. I think there's a lot of different angles you've seen personally at some point, or have been privy to the secondary experience of what people are going through.
Sure.
And when people are trying to find that balance of establishing their career, trying to set their futures up, and especially if they're trying to start a business, usually people refer to their business as their baby.
Right.
Because this is something that they literally created. It was an idea that they manifested into reality, and they're trying to grow and to thrive. And that baby becomes first, even though they may have a significant other and even children.
Yeah.
And so when you're in that space of trying to develop your baby, but you still have people who are like, hey, but what about me?
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges you felt like that you dealt with that you also found solutions for? Because that's one thing, like people will be like, oh man, wife is like, I wants me to come home, but I'm thinking 5 years down the line of hurrying up and paying off this house.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got 10 years together better later.
Right.
Son wants me to be at practice, and I'm like, yeah, I'm missing practice now, but I'm setting up to be able to pay for you to go to college later.
Yeah.
So for the folks who are like, so in that dynamic, when you're trying to give and take and you're having those conversations, like what were some of the things that you did and maybe some solutions for somebody who's going through the same stuff?
That's a great question. A lot of the guys, my peer group, that will give you the advice of the work-life balance and give you the advice to spend more time at home, I'm going to be completely honest with you. A lot of us are really hypocrites.
Okay.
Because it's easy to give that advice when your mortgage is paid off, right? It's easy to tell the guy to stay home and take your kids to practice when you have paid off your house. Now, what I can tell you is if I look at the first probably 12 years of when I was getting really, really starting to see some success in corporate America, working for a Fortune 100 company, getting the benefits of stock splits and doubles and big bonuses that I never thought I would imagine, that was great. But what I can also tell you is, the mother of my youngest son, it certainly cost us our relationship. Not because she did anything wrong or that I was doing anything wrong, but I traveled so much with this company that she was basically living the life of a single woman, right? She's taking care of the kids on her own because I'm spending, 3 weeks in Ireland, 1 week in the U.S. for 13 months. Then I spent 13 months in, San Jose. Then I spent 13 months in Dallas. Oh, did I mention my home was in Houston, Texas? Yeah. So all of a sudden you look up, 4 years have passed and they're just seeing me on Friday nights, leaving on Sunday nights. I did that for 4 years. So the pay, the cost of that was it certainly cost me some relationships. But I can also tell you the benefits have been I was able to pay for, my oldest son to go to a very nice university and get him through that, right? My youngest son, who's on scholarship for the most part, but they were able to get cars when they got to be a certain age and got their licenses. And, again, we live in a community that I'm proud of. I've lived in the same place for 19 years, and it was my first new home. And I can't find myself to move, but, there's benefits, right? My kids got to go to camps. My kids got to go places, and they went on vacation without me. Yeah. Right. I've never been to Disney. My kids have. So it's certainly been a give and take. What I can tell you is going through those processes, I'm in a good place now, but I'm not so naive as to think that I didn't leave some carnage, behind me. Even today, when I think about TMC, TMC is the Morris Company. That's my name. That's my reputation. Reputation is a cornerstone of power. Power is important. So even to this day, my business is like one of my children. I'm not going to say it's more important than one of my children, but it gets carried on my income tax just like one of my children, right? It still pays the bills. We help a lot of people. And, whether it's scholarship funds, whether it's community involvement, whether my kids calling me saying, Dad, I need a few bucks, it's still paying dividends. So it's difficult, right? It's very difficult. Being an entrepreneur is difficult. Yeah. Anybody if you want to do it right, if you plan to be successful, being an entrepreneur is not easy. It's never part-time. So I've thrown my life into it. The one thing is I feel still young and strong enough to be able to enjoy life. So at 50, soon to be 54, now I'm at a point where I'm actually saying I'm ready to downshift. But I've built some savings. I've got some equity. I own my home. Now I can back off a little bit, or so I say. But yeah, your business, it's just like a fourth child. I have 3. It's just like having a fourth child. And you treat it that way, and you should, right? You don't abuse it. You treat it with love and compassion, and you grow it and you feed it, and eventually it starts to feed you.
Nice. Because I am a firm believer of the statement that grass is green where you water it. So wherever it is that you're putting all this energy and this effort, that's what's most likely going to flourish.
Yeah.
So, but what about, so there's the people who are on the opposite side of the spectrum, who are more life than work balance.
Yeah.
So the ones who are like, no, I want to take the vacations. I want to go to Cancun. I want to spend time with my girl. I want to hang out with my guy. I want to be there for all the kids' functions. But now maybe the savings isn't quite what they would have liked it to have been. Now the dynamic between, yes, we spend all this time together, but kids are getting married and we can't really contribute much.
Yeah.
Or we're not in a position to help them buy their first house, or those such things. So I'm sure, living through life, you come to see people who are in that dynamic.
Absolutely. And it seems harsh, right?
Yeah.
After the fact. Yeah. But I tell them, I was at work while you was kicking it. Yeah. So the fact that, because there's a time for work and there's a time for play. Yeah. And the biggest differences that I see in my life is when they were playing, I was working. And now we're on the back end. Yeah. I'm starting to play. They got to go to work. Yeah. And they're going to work until they're 65, and they're going to be trying to figure out how they're going to make it. So I think we all have to do about the same amount. And another thing that I used to say, because I used to talk to some people and I can't do that kind of work. If you make the decision to have those vacations, you can't cry about not having the savings. Yeah. Right. Just like I made the decision to work. So it's not really fair that now I cry about, I'd do it all different. I would just work 32 hours a week instead of 84 hours a week. And you get what you put in. you absolutely get what you put in.
Yeah. So when you come across people now who are on, say, the back end of life, who decided to be home,
Hmm.
during when their kids were small, and they decided to take a job that was closer to home and work their 40 hours a week, and with 5 o'clock, by 5:02 they was already in the parking lot so they could make it home for dinner, so they could sit there as a family. So when you start to get those people now who are now in business, that dynamic of like, okay, I need to make X, Y, and Z happen yesterday.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you can't plant late and think the harvest is going to come through on time, right? I see a lot of guys that are grinding,
Yeah.
and Father Time is undefeated. So what you tend to run into is you just don't have the energy. You just don't have the energy. You just don't have the time, and then you start to get into like the grasp of technology. Now you've re-entered the workspace and you're trying to figure out where the server is located. And we're like, we're in the cloud. Like, what are you talking about? Because time has moved on. There's a lot of people re-entering the workforce.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, man, I'm starting to see people that was in that group ahead of me, age-wise.
Yeah.
And they're doing like security work. There's nothing wrong with security work, but I'm sure it's not what they thought, right? I see them doing like greeting at Walmart. They're doing jobs because they can't really get a position because these youngsters that are coming out of college are getting the jobs, if they want them.
Yeah.
So it becomes so competitive. So it's hard to go back, and so I might even backtrack a little bit on, I did what I felt like I needed to do to get what I wanted. I didn't accomplish it all. I feel like I missed some things and I'm still trying to grab those things today.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that I worked my tail off then so that I don't feel the pressure that a lot of my peers feel.
Okay.
Right. But I'm the type of person, as long as they don't ask me to borrow no money, I'm okay with their situation. I still love them. We can still kick it. But don't ask me to borrow no money when you was on vacation and I was at work.
So we get this folks who so when we talk about the work-life balance, sometimes just finding a balance in general. So sometimes the dynamic is, instead of pouring into our work 100%, maybe we pour into our kids, and we let our relationships and our friendships go.
Yeah.
Or we focus on our significant other, and then we let our social circle kind of down the vine because we poured everything into that. And then we get older and we're like, I don't have any friends anymore. Or I made my whole life about my kids, and now my kids are grown and left, and now I'm 50 and I don't even know what I like anymore, because if I'm not packing juice boxes or driving somebody somewhere, I don't even know what I'm doing with myself.
Yeah. Well, that's, me being a single guy for so long, that was something that I have struggled with, right? Because when I can remember probably through most of my 40s, who were my friends? They were parents of other kids on the team, right? Those are who my friends were, or they were my coworkers.
Yeah.
But I just didn't have a lot of outside relationships because I was pouring myself into my job. So I would build relationships with people that I worked with, or I was pouring my time into my kids. So I developed relationships with the parents on the basketball team, the parents from the. So that was one thing. But one thing that I don't want to miss when you talk about balance, and I don't know the proper term for it, but something that I've seen and experienced is, a lot of people have asked me, they even criticize me. You're going to work yourself to death. You're going to work yourself. I said, well, I'm not in the cotton field. I sit behind a desk in front of a computer. I'm probably not going to work myself to death. But a lot of what drove me to work, and I contribute a lot of my success in business, was the times when I was unhappy at home. Right. And there's times when the relationships were struggling, and I just didn't want to leave work.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go home. So I took another project, right, on the road. Or I would get up Saturday morning and go sit in front of my desk and be very productive. But a lot of times when you think about work-life balance, and some people look at this and turn their nose up, but there was times when I did not want to be off doing anything dishonorable. I didn't want to be out there doing anything that was low integrity, right? I didn't want to be out there chasing skirts and going to the bars and this and that, but I didn't want to go home. So my safe space became my desk, and so the one thing that, that I find important, and this is usually where you help me out, is how does home become the safe space? Like when I'm there and and I get frustrated, I should be running home. I should be running to my significant other. I should be going to play with my dog, right? But when the significant other's difficult and the dog's pissing on the carpet and the kids are complaining and they're spending money and they're wrecking cars and they're doing all this stuff, man, I get to where, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to finish my monthly report and get it out. And then my boss was like, man, you got your monthly report out early for the last 12 months straight. On your performance review, instead of a 3% raise, you're going to get a 6% raise. And then what I started running into was, instead of a $12,000 bonus, you're going to get an $80,000 bonus. I was like, what?
Get rewarded for the coping.
Yeah. And so it's almost like, some people would say you got rewarded for bad behavior because I wasn't going home. And so I can tell you honestly, that was a big driver, from probably 2004 to 2012. I just didn't want to go home. So I worked and I worked and I worked and I worked. And, it led me to, being able to start my own company and my employer becoming my largest customer, and again, I do not recommend that. Right. We're not prescribing anything. We always have a disclaimer. We're not doctors. We're not lawyers. We're not prescribing anything. We're just two brothers talking. I'm not telling people to, stay at work all day. I'm just talking about what happened to me. Yeah. But what happened was those behaviors were rewarded or awarded, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah. So when you're looking at that, trying to find that balance, and that's a common trend. Because especially for a lot of men, for historically, like it is a rewardable coping mechanism, in the sense of, I'm gonna work some overtime. I'm gonna go in on Saturday. I thought you was off Saturday. Yeah, well, there was, kids want to eat, right?
Yeah.
Kids are gonna eat fine if you took Saturday off, but it's kind of like that. I'm gonna pour into this.
Right.
That grass is greener where you water it. If the dynamic at home is not peaceful, it would be being home more is actually what helps create the peace.
Yeah.
But it's like, but if the feeling isn't there, I may not want to go through what it takes to make home peaceful. Work, I know. Work makes sense. Work is consistent. Work is comfortable.
I'm respected at work.
What's that?
I'm respected at work.
Exactly. It said most men, you'll find men hit their stride at their job. And they say, what's the best version of a man? In a lot of cases, it's not as a husband or father.
Right.
You'll find the best version of a lot of men is when they're at work at something that they are competent and passionate about.
Yeah.
Where they are respected by their peers, they're knowledgeable of their tasks, like they're a go-to guy at their position. People take their word is strong, like their opinion is valid. Like you'll find most dudes, if you really want to see the best version of your man, check them when you're on the job.
Yeah.
They're most confident in that position. They're most, outgoing. And so when you're like, which is this, if home doesn't feel like a safe space, not only does work seem safe, but I feel like Superman at work.
That's exactly right. That is so true. I can tell you throughout my career, and I've always taken my job very seriously and carried myself with dignity and respect. And, I have employees that worked for me 25 years ago, 20 years ago. And when they pass, their children call me up and say, hey, Mr. James, you have to be at the funeral. you know, that means the world to me, right? I get into so many situations where, man, I would be at work and I'd have on that pressed white shirt walking through the facility, and if somebody was talking, they got busy.
Yeah.
How you doing, Miss? How you doing, Mr. James? Hey, Mr. James. Hey, Mo, how you doing? And I loved it because I'm like, man, look at this. I got people that appreciate me. They respect me. They love coming to work. I'm treating them right. And then I got to go home to these people that, I think I heard Chris Rock say, only women, children, and dogs are loved unconditionally.
Yeah.
Men are loved based on what they can provide.
Yeah.
Right. And for so many years, you come in and I'm cool, but let the lights switches not work.
Yeah.
Let the favorite hot pockets not be in the freezer, right? As if that's a priority.
Yeah.
So it's different, right? And again, I'm not telling people to work more and not spend time at home. I think the advice I would give is, what are you doing to make home better?
Yeah.
Right. And that's a two-way street, right? It's not just me, but it's also them. So that, why would he prefer to be at work than be with me? Well, maybe because I'm doing this, maybe because I'm doing that, maybe because I'm not doing this, maybe because I'm a nag, maybe because my mom is here too much. Well, I mean, maybe because I got a smart mouth. He doesn't want to put up with it, right? I tell, man, I put up with so much sometimes at work, then I got to come home and put up with more. I just will be at work. At least I get paid there.
And at home is half of them are people you can't fire.
That's right. That's right. That's right. All of them. And you don't know how many times I've heard, hey, I'm not your employee. Don't talk to me like that.
Yeah.
You can't write me up, partner. So I've literally heard that. So, but the balance. It says nobody wakes up on their deathbed or lays on their deathbed and says, I wish I'd have spent a little bit more time at work. I would say, I wish I'd have spent a little less time at work, but I certainly think that I've done many of the right things the right way. And there's a lot of people have benefited from, my decision to work more.
Nice. And so I would say, is we looking at this week, for somebody out there who right now they're on the losing end of their balance. They can't seem to find a good center point either. They're home too much because they're trying to accommodate a significant other, be there for their kids more, and they're watching the bank account dwindle, or that savings projection is not looking strong.
Mm-hmm.
So then they try to work more, and now they're starting to feel their relationship get a little distant, and they're missing more family functions, and they're never around for Christmas, and they're never at the recital, or that sort of stuff, and they're trying to figure it out. So if you had something that you think, like maybe a principle or two, or maybe an idea or a concept or something that help them, so they're not just because they're missing the mark both ways,
right?
Help them kind of center in the middle.
Yeah. Well, here's what I would say, and this is probably may throw you off a little bit, but when I think about when I was really, really chasing that dollar, the advice I would tell somebody a little bit younger and they're trying to balance it, just because you have enough money for something doesn't mean that you can afford it. So what do I mean by that? You're working for the work-life balance and the family, but you're also trying to drive that BMW, right? So then you have to start asking yourself, is that what's important, right? Do we really need to live in this neighborhood, right? And I think that if you start to manage your cost, then it becomes a little bit easier to manage all the other aspects of your life, because, couples fight over money, right? They say sex and money are two of the biggest, right? If you're living, now if you're in that relationship and she wants that house in the hills and et cetera, yeah, you're going to have to be working 84 hours a week, most likely. So the biggest thing I would start, and this is the same advice I give your nephews, is manage your expenses. And then that will allow you to manage everything else, right? Now, it doesn't fix the relationship sides. But if you can take that out, right? If you can go ahead and accept that, hey, baby, I can't buy your Mercedes, but I'm going to get you a nice Impala. But that's going to allow us to save $500 a month. Well, what's important to that? Now, instead of me working Monday through Saturday, I can work Monday through Friday. And Saturday is going to be date night because of that 500 that we're saving, we're going to use $100 a week to go to the movies and have dinner.
Nice.
Right. So just because you got enough money for something don't mean you can afford it. And that's, time, relationships, how we live our lives. And I think that's a balance that as a people, and we can have a whole nother discussion about that, about how we manage our money, how we treat money and the impact that money has on our relationships and the way we work and where we work. I hear so many people talk about, I don't make enough money. I say, go get another job. There's no secret recipe. Well, I can't do that. Why can't you? And then we get into things like, well, do you need to go get some training? Do you need to go back to school? Maybe just be a better employee and stay where you're at. I work in an industry where somebody will quit me and go across the street for 25 cents an hour. Right. I mean, it's just, we can go so much more. So I think that the first advice that I tell people when they start talking, I'm working. Why are you working? Well, because I'm trying to get this, this, and this. Let's talk about what you want versus what you need. Let's talk about prioritization. Let's really talk about you're in this great apartment with that $100,000 Lexus in the driveway. You got a Lexus, but you don't have a house, right? And there's, again, financial education can help with that. So a little bit of a curveball, not a direct answer, but your kids are only young once. Yeah. You got to spend time with them. If I think about what I miss most in life is, my youngest is going to be 22 in 2 months. My oldest is going to be 30. What do I miss the most is those little cats running around, me being at baseball practice, basketball practice, football practice, and you don't get that back. You may get some grands, but you don't have the energy to run with them. So, definitely prioritize. If there's something happening at home that makes you want to be at work, I guess you really need to address what's happening at home. Yeah. The escape, although there are some benefits to being at work, you're not escaping it, right? Because when you do finally get off, she's going to still be sitting there. So that's my thoughts. Or maybe she won't be.
Or she won't be.
Been there too. Been there too.
So for everybody, we appreciate you for listening. Like I said, motivation and mindset. The goal is just, two brothers having a conversation and hopefully some helpful hints or some tools or some information that can help, anybody out there who hears this, whether it be the dynamic at their job, building a business, just dealing with life in general. So for all this great information, and you do coaching, where can people reach out to you if they're involved in business coaching, or maybe they're looking for a job from the staffing side? Or
Absolutely. So if you're looking for a job, especially around Texas, Indiana, Kentucky, just go out to www.tmcworkforce.com. If you put in TMC Workforce, TMC Staffing, we're always hiring across the country. We're always looking to put some good people to work. If you're looking for some coaching, mentoring, leadership development, I encourage you to go to the morrismotivation.com and, just reach out to me via my website. And we love to help people. We're looking to help people develop. We're looking, we don't do any negativity here. That's what I love about this show. So that's a way to get in touch with me. How do we get in touch with you?
So if you're interested in taking the assessment to kind of get the best, like I look at the DISC assessment as like just a diagnostic. I work under the premise of self-awareness without judgment. So we're just looking at how we attack problem solving, how we deal with communication, how we interact with people, just getting a clear understanding. The assessment comes with a 22-page report of you. So they always say that human beings don't come with an owner's manual. This becomes yours. So you can go to My Keys to Me, MyKeystome, MyKeysToMe.com, and that'll give you information. You can get set up with a consultation. We can answer any questions and get you started on the assessment. And all social media handles is the same, and everything is at J Morris CEO.
Awesome. Man, it's always great talking to you. I like talking to you, just our personal private conversations, but getting together every week doing this program. It helps me out. It's therapy for me, and I just hope that it's helping somebody else that's listening. So great, man. I love the new format, man. It was great today. I had a blast.
To everybody out there, thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.
Hey, thank you, everybody.